Hello students, I am BLN Swarupini, lecturer in biochemistry from Sri Venkateswara College of Arts and Sciences, which is affiliated to Adikavi Nanaya University. In this class, I would like to discuss about transformation in living system from the second BSc Biochemistry third semester paper from the fourth unit. And this is an important topic in which we can know about the how energy will be transformed in our bodies or in our living systems. Okay, so let's start the topic, and this topic is from the paper Enzymology and Bioenergetics. Okay, the biochemical reactions are associated with the liberation of energy as the reacting system moves from a higher to a lower energy level. So how these biochemical reactions are associated? These are associated with the liberation of energy. Okay, energy will be liberated, and this will happen in the reacting systems, and this energy which is liberated in the reacting system will move from higher to lower energy level, and generally the energy is liberated in the form of heat, since the biochemical reactions are isothermic in nature. Based on the isothermic nature of the biochemical reactions, generally energy is liberated in the form of heat. Okay, in the previous classes also we discussed this. Energy is liberated in the form of heat. Okay, but heat is not utilized as energy, but it's just a source of energy. Okay, the heat energy cannot be used to drive the vital process that requires energy. Okay, so as I told, this heat is not essential, or it is not used as a energy for the energy requiring purpose. Okay, hence biological processes obtain energy by chemical coupling to oxidative reactions. Hence, biological processes obtain energy by chemical coupling or oxidative reactions. And energy is essential for maintenance of life. This energy is essential for maintenance of life. For any movement in our body, or for any work should be done with our body, energy is very essential. For this, our body will strive every second of our life to withstand the energy requirement in our body with different kinds of metabolic pathways and different kinds of reactions in our body. Okay, the maintenance of body temperature and chemical or mechanical work of muscles and generation of electric impulse in nerve and brain, active transport of all energy, all required energy. Okay, so majorly this energy is meant for the maintenance of temperature. So by utilization of this energy, what will happen? This reaction, after reaction, what will happen? Heat will be released in the form of energy. So this heat is essential to maintain the optimum temperature of the body. So to maintain the optimum temperature, obviously energy is required, and also for the mechanical movements of the muscles, and also to generate impulse, nerve impulse, which will help to give information from different parts of our body to the brain, and also to give brain information from brain to nerves also. So for all the work that will be done by our body requires energy, and in the living system the energy is stored in the form of energy rich or high energy compounds, and which are mainly phosphate esters. So phosphate esters like ATP, enol compounds, thioesters, and 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate or phosphoenol pyruvate. So all these are different kinds of energy rich compounds, and these will store the energy. Okay, these are the reserves of the energy in the form of high energy phosphates. Okay, these will contain energy phosphates, and these will be hydrolyzed whenever our body requires energy. Okay, energy in living system can be measured and converted in different ways. Okay, units like are joule, calorie, electron volt, quantum, or kilocalorie. So all these are different types of units useful for the measurement of energy in our body. Okay, so and the next one is, let's see about principles of thermodynamics. Principles of thermodynamics. In this principles of thermodynamics, any bioenergetics or biochemical thermodynamics, these are the study which deal with the energy change in biochemical reactions. This is the study of energy change in biochemical reaction. Energy change means it might be transfer of the electrons or utilization of the electrons. That means transfer or loss or accepting of the electrons might be will influence the energy change. And the reaction is broadly classified as exergonic and endergonic. Okay, in exergonic reactions, energy release will be carried, whereas in endergonic reactions, energy will be consumed. Okay, and this bioenergetics is concerned with the initial and final state of energy compounds of the reactants and not the mechanism of chemical actions. Okay, whereas we discussed in previous concepts like free energy concept or enthalpy, entropy, in all these concepts, their mechanism is also considered, but in this bioenergetics, mechanism of the chemical reaction is not at all concerned. It is concerned with the initial and final state of the energy component. So how these energy components are in the initial and final state of the reaction. This is the major concept that we study in relation with this bioenergetics. Okay, and principles, we have different principles of thermodynamics, in which first principle of thermodynamic and second principle of thermodynamic are helpful in the study of this bioenergetics. So let's see how these principles, first and second principle of thermodynamics, will help to study these bioenergetics. Okay, two fundamental laws of thermodynamics will explain the interconversion of various forms of energy known as the first and second law of thermodynamics. The first and second law of thermodynamics. And what we can understand by this, by utilizing these thermodynamic principles, means we can understand the direction of the reaction and how it is being useful. So its utilization can be understood, and what is the energy source, whether the energy source is from the external is an external source or an internal source. All these characters can be easily understood by laws, by all these thermodynamic laws, first law of thermodynamics and second law of thermodynamics. So let's see what is first law of thermodynamics first. Okay, this is first law of thermodynamics will state the total amount of energy in the universe remains constant, and the energy may be converted from one form to the other, but it cannot be created or destroyed. So total amount of energy in the universe is constant. Okay, and we cannot create extra energy or we cannot destroy the energy which is already present in the nature. Okay, but this energy always converts from one form to other, but it will not be destroyed, or excess energy cannot be created. This is about the first law of thermodynamics. Okay, and for example, in an exothermic reaction, heat is given out to the surroundings. In an exothermic reaction, heat is given out to the surroundings, and result the internal energy of reacting system decreases, while the energy of surroundings increases correspondingly. So what happens during this exothermic reaction? Heat is given to the outer surroundings. Okay, heat will be liberated, and internal energy of the reacting system obviously will decrease, because this energy is liberated in the form of heat. Okay, that's why internal energy will be decreased and surrounding energy will be increased, as this received energy in the form of heat from the internal system. So if you calculate total energy in both the systems, that means in the biological system and in its surroundings, then again energy will be equal. There will be no change in the amount of energy. So this is how, if you understand this point, you can understand how energy will is converted from one form to another, or from one place to another place, and it will not be destroyed. Okay, and let's see about second law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics: a process can occur spontaneously only if the sum of the entropies of the system and its surroundings increase. Okay, so in the second law of thermodynamics, we study about the change in this entropies. Okay, by increase in the entropy of the system and also entropy of the surroundings, spontaneous reaction will be produced. Okay, so this can be calculated with this equation: delta S process is equal to delta S system plus delta S surroundings less than 0. So here a scientist called Gibbs, he have developed a free energy concept in which he used first and second law of thermodynamics to explain this free energy concept. Okay, to explain this free energy concept, this scientist Gibbs developed a free energy concept using this first and second law of thermodynamics to study bioenergetics. Okay, the entropy is not regarded as the criteria whether a biochemical process can take place spontaneously or not, and the entropy changes of chemical reactions are readily measurable. For spontaneity, the entropy changes of the surroundings and the system should be known in order to overcome this problem. Okay, so here in biochemical process, entropy is not a criteria, but this change of entropy should be known, so that we can know different problems of the reaction and overcome these problems. So to better understand the bioenergetic processes, scientist Gibbs in 1875 developed this free energy concept, and he indicated free energy with capital G, which means Gibbs. Okay, after his name Gibbs, he indicated free energy with capital G, and this Gibbs free energy is a thermodynamic state of function that defines the equilibrium condition in terms of enthalpy and entropy of the system and at constant temperature and pressure. Okay, so this free energy, Gibbs free energy, will explain the equilibrium condition of the enthalpy and entropy of the system at constant temperature and pressure. Delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. Okay, So this equation gives quantitative interrelationship between the change in energy, heat and entropy in chemical reactions takes place at constant temperature and constant pressure. Okay, the condition prevailing in biological systems. So here this particular equation, this above equation delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S is responsible for the explaining the quantitative interrelationship between change in energy, heat and entropy in the chemical reactions, and it will takes place at constant temperature and constant pressure, okay, and in a biological system. So Gibbs free energy can be positive, negative, or it may be zero at equilibrium, okay. So if exergonic reaction is there, it is a Gibbs free energy is negative, okay. Gibbs free energy is negative. If the Gibbs free energy change is less than 0, it is considered as negative and the process is spontaneous and it is called as exergonic reaction, and it releases energy in this reaction and the free energy of reactants is greater than the free energy of reactants is greater than the free energy of products, okay. So in this studying this Gibbs free energy change in relation with exergonic reaction, in this exergonic reaction we can observe free energy change is less than 0 and we denote it with negative sign, and due to this lesser negative value of Gibbs free energy change, reaction is spontaneous, okay, and it will release energy into the surrounding atmosphere or to the outer environment, okay. And by this what will happen, free energy of reactants will be very high when compared to the energy of products, okay. So the chemical energy is so released can be used to do work and said to be thermodynamically favorable, okay. So this is an example, glucose plus ATP gives rise to glucose 6 phosphate and ADP. It is a reversible reaction, okay, and delta G is 8.0 kilocalories per mole. And the next one is endergonic reaction. Here in endergonic reaction, Gibbs free energy change is positive, which means it is greater than 0, okay, and the process is not spontaneous and it requires additional energy to show a positive show a spontaneous reaction. So in this reaction, the free energy of the products these reactions require input of energy and said to be thermodynamically unfavorable. Here example is glucose 6 phosphate plus ADP gives rise to glucose plus ATP, which is a reversible reaction, and delta G value is plus 8.0 kilocalories per mole, okay. And this reaction plus 8.0 means it requires 8 kilocalorie per mole of energy to complete the chemical reaction. And if the Gibbs free energy change for a process is 0, the system is at equilibrium, okay, and the delta G sign is controlled by the balance between delta H and T delta S, okay. And we can understand that the change in Gibbs free energy as a way of measuring how thermodynamic factors relate to drive a system of equilibrium with its surroundings, okay. So this Gibbs free energy change can be easily understood by measuring the thermodynamic factors related to the system and to the surroundings and how these two are equilibrated. By seeing the equilibration between system and the surroundings and the thermodynamic factors of this equilibrium, we can understand the change of Gibbs free energy very perfectly. And the next, standard free energy. How this standard free energy is related? Standard free energy is denoted with delta G naught. Okay, it is denoted with delta G naught. At a constant temperature and pressure, free energy change, that is delta G, is independent on the actual concentration of reactants and products. Actual concentration of reactants and products. Okay, so at constant temperature and pressure, this free energy change, that is delta G, is dependent on concentration of reactants and products, and it is called as standard free energy. And it can be denoted, it can be explained with the equation delta G is equal to delta G naught plus RT logarithm B by A. Okay. And this delta G is related to equilibrium constant, and when a reaction reactant A to product B is carried at a equilibrium, free energy change is 0, and we can denote that with the equation delta G is equal to 0 is equal to delta G naught plus RT logarithm B equation by A equilibrium, and here to represent this B equilibrium by A equilibrium, we can use a equilibrium constant, that is K equilibrium. Okay, and the next one is high energy compounds. High energy compounds. So these are the substances which possess sufficient free energy to liberate at least 7 kilocalories per mole at pH 7 are referred to as high energy compounds or energy rich compounds. High energy compounds or energy rich compounds. A small family of universal biomolecules mediate the flow of energy from exergonic reaction to the energy requiring process of life. Okay, and these high energy phosphate compounds and some reduced coenzyme belong to this family, and on hydrolysis these compounds exhibit large negative free energy. So these high energy compounds are substances which store the free energy to liberate at least 7 kilocalorie per mole at pH 7. So these high energy compounds are the storing components of free energy. Okay, and these will help in the flow of energy in our body, and also these are phosphate components. Okay, these are phosphate components. Mostly 99% of the high energy components are phosphate compounds, and few of them are related to coenzyme. Okay, and on hydrolysis of that high energy compound they will liberate free energy. Okay, biologically occurring phosphate esters play a key role in the energy transaction of a liquid living cell. Like adenosine triphosphate is a basic unit of energy legal tender throughout the phylogenetic scale. That means this ATP is very important and basic unit of energy throughout our phylogenetic scale. That means phylogenetics means nothing but in maximum all the species which are present on earth contains this ATP as a basic unit. They contain this ATP as a basic unit. Okay, they contain this as a basic unit, and except acetyl CoA, most of the high energy compounds contain phosphate group. Okay, so here it is related to coenzyme as discussed before. Around 99% of all the high energy compounds are related to phosphate, whereas few components are related to coenzyme, and this acetyl CoA is related to coenzyme. Excuse me. And scientist Lippmann, he suggested a symbol squiggle to represent the high energy bond, and if you see the diagram of structure of ATP, you can understand. Bonding between high energy phosphate groups is represented with squiggle. Okay. And these high energy compounds are four types: phosphoric acid anhydride, phosphoric carboxylic anhydride, enol phosphate, esters. Let's see examples for these high energy compounds now. ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is a unique and the most important high energy molecule in the living system. Okay, this is a high energy compound due to the presence of two phosphoanhydride bonds in the molecule. It will contain two phosphoanhydride bonds. That's why this is very high energy or energy rich component. Okay, and excuse me, this is the currency of, simply you can call it as currency of the cell. And ATP will yield much energy with the pyrophosphate group in when hydrolyzed, and it donates high energy phosphate to low energy compound to make energy rich. So it will donate this high energy phosphate group to the weaker component to make it energy rich. Okay, and this can be achieved more with pyrophosphate hydrolysis. Okay, it acts as an energy link between catabolism and anabolic pathways, and free energy decrease. So free energy which is present, which is related to this ATP, will be decreased with two hydrolysis reactions. Okay, so as it contains three high energy phosphates, by one hydrolysis reaction, one phosphate group will be released and it will be converted into ADP, and after second hydrolysis reaction it will be losing one more phosphate, energy phosphate, and it will be converted into AMP. So completely AMP molecules energy source will be decreased. Okay, and the next one is phosphoric carboxylic anhydrates. Best example for this is acyl phosphates, and these are 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate and acetyl phosphate. Okay, let's see about them. The mixed anhydride of phosphoric acid and carboxylic acid are called as acyl phosphates. Okay, so these are energy rich compounds, and best examples are 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate and acetyl phosphate are biologically two important acetyl phosphates. Okay, and hydrolysis of these compounds yield 3-phosphoglycerate and acetate respectively. That means 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate will produce 3-phosphoglycerate and this acyl phosphate will produce acetate, and this 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate is formed during glycolysis process, and this only one phosphate bond attached to the carboxylic group is energy rich. Okay, so this 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate have two phosphate groups in which only one is a high energy phosphate, and this is a intermediary reaction. Conversion of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate to 3-phosphoglycerate is a intermediate reaction of glycolysis process, and it will lead to release of high energy phosphate and ultimately release of free energy. And here acetyl phosphate is converted into acetate, and here also what we call this free energy will be released in the form of this high energy phosphate. Okay, and the next one is enol. Here enol's best example is phosphoenol pyruvate. It is an example for enolic phosphate, and this molecule is an important intermediate in carbohydrate metabolism. As this before reaction, this 3-phosphoglycerate will be converted into 2-phosphoglycerate, and this 2-phosphoglycerate is converted into phosphoenol pyruvate, and this is converted into pyruvate ultimately. Okay, so the pyruvate which is formed is will be formed in the enol form. Okay, pyruvate formed from phosphoenol pyruvate will be in the enol form, which is a which is not a high energy compound, and it is converted into energy rich form, that is keto form. Okay, and for the conversion of enol form to keto form, tautomerization of that particular pyruvate should be carried. Okay, tautomerization of that pyruvate should be carried. Okay, so by complete formation of this end product, that is keto form of pyruvate, it will release large negative free energy, and it is a potent phosphorylation agent. It contains one phosphester bond and that can undergo hydrolysis to yield enol form of the pyruvate, which immediately tautomerize to the more stable keto form of pyruvate, and the stable form of product is the contributor to the high standard free energy of hydrolysis. Okay, free form of hydrolysis. Okay, so immediately enol form is produced, and this undergoes tautomerization to form keto form, and this is the high standard free energy form, and on hydrolysis it will yield this high free energy. Okay, and up to hydrolysis, unstable enolic form of pyruvate converts to keto form, resulting in large negative free energy. Together, the hydrolysis and subsequent tautomerization only, this free energy will be released. Okay, and the next one is creatine phosphate. This is the main storage form of energy. In muscle, and it serves as ready source of phosphoryl group for quick synthesis of ATP from ADP. Okay, that means here creatine phosphate is a major energy resource for our muscles. Okay, and our muscles contain this creatine phosphate in very high concentration. When compared with ATP, it is 10 times higher. Okay, our skeletal muscles will have 10 times higher percentage of creatine phosphate when compared to ATP, and this particular creatine phosphate is a ready source of phosphoryl groups. Okay, and these will very fastly synthesize ATP from ADP. Okay, and skeletal muscles have more creatine phosphate, and it is also found in smooth muscles, brain, and also in kidneys. But the concentration of this creatine phosphate in smooth muscles, brain, and kidney is very low. If you see the reaction, creatine phosphate is converted into creatine, in which ATP is converted into ATP. So, creatine phosphate is converted into creatine by removal of this phosphate, high energy phosphate group present in this creatine phosphate, and this will bind to the ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and it will be converted into adenosine triphosphate, and standard Gibbs free energy is minus 3.2 kilocalories per mole. Okay, and the next compound is high energy thioester. And this high energy thioesters have a large negative free energy on hydrolysis. This thioester have a large negative free energy on hydrolysis, and best example is acetyl CoA. So acetyl CoA means it is a coenzyme related high energy compound. Okay, and acetyl CoA is one of the main compound belonging to this group. Acetyl CoA is one of the main compound belonging to this group, and the linkage between COO minus, that is carboxyl group, and sulfuric group, that is SH group, is a thioester linkage. Okay, by forming this thioester linkage, this acetyl CoA is present. Okay, if you see the reaction, finally acetyl CoA is produced. Okay, so this is about high energy compounds. Okay, what are the high energy compounds that we have discussed? ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is the major energy source. Whenever we take food material, what will happen? Major food content in our diet is carbohydrates, okay, and these all carbohydrates will be digested into in our digestive system and absorbed. During digestion, what will happen? During the process of digestion, uh, larger carbohydrate molecules are converted into simpler and monosaccharides, okay, simpler monosaccharides like glucose, okay. So by the end of the digestion, glucose molecules will be produced and these will be absorbed into the body, okay, and these glucose will enter our cells and will be converted into different metabolic pathways to liberate energy, okay, to liberate energy. So for this, glucose is converted into glucose 6 phosphate, in which ATP is the major source, and it will lead to this glycolysis process. In overall glycolysis process, energy will be ultimately released in the form of ATP, okay. Not only glycolysis, different pathways like Krebs cycle and all, these are all the are done in our body, metabolized in our body to produce huge amount of ATP, okay. And the next one is acyl phosphate, that is 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, okay, and also acyl phosphate. This is also a component of glycolysis process, okay. And enol, phosphoenol pyruvate is also a intermediate in the glycolysis process, okay. And apart from this, creatine phosphate, which is a major energy source for the muscle, okay. So this creatine phosphate is responsible for the movements of our smooth muscles, and this particular creatine phosphate is majorly present in higher concentration in the smooth and skeletal, majorly in the skeletal muscles, and in lesser content in smooth muscle, brain and kidneys, okay. And the next one is thioester. This is a acyl CoA, coenzyme A based, coenzyme based intermediate product, okay. So this is also responsible for the energy liberation in our body, okay. So this is about today's topics. Please verify all the classes for 1 to 2 times. If you have any doubt, please contact me, and while listening to the class for the first time, please keep the material provided for you with you while listening to the class. If you have any doubts, contact me, okay. Thank you, students.